we often look at gaslighting as like what the provider did to us, which is true. There's plenty of providers who gaslight, but you are gaslighting yourself if you are so busy trying to get that diagnosis and not just being like, I feel it, and now what am I doing about it, right? Like, to your point, this is already valid. It's already valid. Welcome to the Medical Disruptor, a place where well-versed humans can ask the hard questions and get evidence-based answers you won't find anywhere else. Our community is always informed, empowered, and science-backed. Every guest on the show must be first clinically trained MDs, NPs, PAs, and researchers who want more and expand beyond their conventional training to find deeper answers for complex health challenges. And I'm Dr. E, the NP with a PhD, and I help smart, well-versed humans go from medically gaslit to medically empowered. Today on the Medical Disruptor, I'm joined by Dr. Carolyn Leaf. She was trained as a communication pathologist, cognitive neuroscientist, and became a best-selling author who's been challenging the mental health establishment for decades. Long before there was a term called neuroplasticity, I didn't know this, but there was a time where people believed that you can't change the brain. And she never believed that. She's faced plenty of pushback for saying that, of course, you can change the brain. And her new book called Help in a Hurry dives into how to find calm and clarity in real time when life feels unmanageable. And I think we could all resonate with that one. We're talking about what actually happens in the brain under stress and how to take back control of your mental health without the gaslighting. Let's dive in. Dr. Leaf, I'm so excited to have you here.
Well, I'm so pleased to be with you, Dr. E. It's going to be amazing. We had a little bit of a pre-chat and I loved already what I heard. And I love what you do.
I love that. And I have been looking at your work, and I know you're trained in communication pathology and audiology, and that your background is grounded in hard science. And then you went on to earn a PhD from the University of Pretoria. I hope I pronounced that right. And spent years studying brain and language. But at some point, and this is what I really want to know, you must have decided to like maybe venture out of academia and become the disruptor you are. So what made you break away from that traditional model?
I love that question. So I actually did a very disruptor degree. It was a test degree. They combined medicine with speech pathology and communication and audiology. So we did part medicine. We did neuroscience. I've also got the neuroscience background, psychoneurobiology, mind-brain body connection. So they combined that. They took 7 years and they pushed it into 4. They made us work 7 days a week, literally 12 hours a day. And at the time, it was insanely challenging, but I'm so glad I did that, because when I went on to do, my honors, master's, PhD, all the different degrees, it was an honors degree. I had such a broad understanding of not just if I was, did pure medicine, going straight into sort of a very biological, materialistic approach. And I didn't just have a psychological approach, and I wasn't stuck just in the brain, in materialism and neuroscience. It was such a great combination. Also, hands-on working with patients over the years. I practiced for 25. I've done clinical trials for nearly 40. I've been in the field for 40 years. It's given me a very broad overview. So your question, I diversified.
It's okay. What made you decide to, that it is traditional training. What made you decide to, and what you're doing now is so disruptive? What was that switch like for you?
Okay, so that's why I got my degree was actually almost disruptive. That's where we got to it. So, and it opened many, many doors, because it was bang in the middle of not materialism and not pure medicine and not pure psychology. It was such a blend. So I think I grew out of that. Now there's only 60 of us qualified in the world with that degree. Then they changed it and they split it and did it how they normally did it. That's why I'm a communication pathologist, audiologist, and neuroscientist, because we had that combo and 2 years of medicine. So I'm saying all that to say that is why I'm a disruptor, because I saw it from so many different angles. I had a multiple perspective angle. So right from the get-go, I was challenging the norm. And we go back 40 years in science, and if you're a woman and you're challenging, it was interesting. It was very interesting. I would have people would come up to us and they'd go to my husband and say, "Hi, Dr. Leaf. Hi, Mrs. Leaf." I said, "No, other way around." And I've had male scientists over the years say, "You're not a scientist." And then, I've got more degrees and more experience than they have. So that was always challenging. As a student, I'll never forget, we had our neuroscience professor was telling us about how the brain can't change, because that's what they believed in the 80s and before technology advanced in the mid-90s. And I stuck up my hand and I said, "But Professor, that cannot be true, because we as humans keep changing."
Sure.
And our mind is how we process life, because in the 80s, mind and brain were seen as separate, but the brain was seen as something unchangeable. It's only in the last 40, 50 years that mind and brain have collapsed into one term, and the brain is seen as producing mind. And so I remember asking him this, and he basically said quite sarcastically, well, go do the research, like you're wasting your time. So I said, okay, and I did. And I did some of the earliest.
Challenge accepted.
Challenge accepted. I did some of the earliest work in neuroplasticity. So back in the 80s, I was already saying to people, listen, if you manage your mind, you can change your brain. Your brain is not fixed. So right from the beginning, I believe I automatically thought as a disruptor. That's why I just love your podcast. I mean, medical disruptor is fantastic. And it's not to be difficult, but it's to do what science is supposed to do. Science is not a fixed, hardcore, factual thing. It changes all the time, and we are supposed to constantly be questioning. And that's how it's career.
Oh my God, that is so. I just did a reel about that. Like,
Did you?
yeah, because when did it become not okay to question? And those who question are kind of put in this like crazy category. And it's like, if you want to be taken seriously, you have to just kind of spew the curriculum, and any type of questioning it's become this binary world where we can't question things, and it's not
Yeah.
the right way.
It's almost unitary, not even binary. There's like, one way materialism dominates, and it dominates through, I mean, we can go down the political road, which I know we won't, but it's a problem because science is all about hypothesizing, questioning, and then going back and re-questioning.
Absolutely. And I
Growing.
think, I mean, I don't want to get into this world either, but right now, if you have a question, you can only research it if you're very well funded, and so you can't really ask questions without that, and that becomes a problem.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why when I was back at university, I had a really disruptive a professor who went walked through my master's and PhD with me. And she said, don't get stuck in an institution. It was what that the
Mm.
she said, if you want to take this further, and because she saw how I was thinking, and she said, you're going to get confined, exactly like you've just said. You can't ask the questions you want to ask. So I stayed independent, and I do clinical trials, and we fund it ourselves. It's expensive, it's difficult, but there's ways of doing it. But at least I'm not controlled. I can ask the questions I need to ask, which is so amazing.
So amazing. So I know you've written several books,
Yeah,
many books. 19?
19, 24 languages. I'm busy with number 20 at the moment.
So the one that just came out, wow. Wow, I'm like stressing over my second book right now, and I can't even breathe. I can't imagine what 20 looks like. But the one that just came out, right, is called Help in a Hurry.
Yes, I've got it over here. Here you go. Help and hurry.
Help in a Hurry. So what does that title mean?
I know it's a title that's meant to disrupt. I mean, as I keep saying, I love your word. It's meant to challenge because we live in a society of quick fixes. So
Mm.
people will think, oh, another quick fix, and that's not what it is. It's not a quick fix. What it is, it's based on the science that we can. There's different levels of mind. The mind is not the brain. The mind moves it in different speeds. Energy processing, etc., is different speeds, from 400 billion actions per second on the most deepest level, the non-conscious level, up to 2,000 actions per second on a conscious level. And what that all means is that we work at different levels as humans, and those different levels basically have different speeds. Okay, so what we can do from science and what we know from research, science, clinical application, is that if you can learn to manage the moment, that moment being around about 60 seconds, which is based on the concept of we have 40, the stream of consciousness is around about 40 bursts on every, it's sort of 40 bursts in a minute, and 40 bursts, sorry, a second. And then that accumulates up to a 63-second moment or 60-second moment where we can actually pay attention. So in simple language, there is a speed of processing that happens, different levels of speeds of processing. But if we can learn to start managing the 60-second moment, then we can manage the next moment, then we can manage 10 minutes.
Mm.
Then we can find our patterns, which takes about 7 days to sort of observe and find a pattern. Then you can rewire those patterns, or break a pattern being a habit. And that doesn't take 21 days. It takes at least 63, which is part of the research that I've done. So Help in a Hurry
Wow.
teaches you how to recognize and capture that moment where you are about to react and turn your reaction into a response. And so when you respond, you're actually thinking it through, whereas if you're reacting, you're shooting from uninformed position. You're shooting from old established patterns that may not necessarily be the best way of responding. So, for example, if you always people please, or not always, if you have done a lot of people pleasing in your life, and certain people, maybe at work or in family, trigger you, and you find yourself accepting yet another thing that you shouldn't just to please that person, or accommodating what you know inside you boiling, but you're smiling sweetly, and you find yourself doing that, the help and hurry concept is to actually observe those moments, to train yourself to stand back and observe those moments, recognize that you don't have to actually be a people pleaser in that moment. You can actually stand back, observe, shift that process before you make it even more toxic. So you can catch a spiral before it adds to the network and makes the network even.
Wow.
And that's basically the principle. So what we did was, from my clinical work and research, and we did surveys with, we've got quite a few million followers and so on over our platforms. We looked at what were the top areas that people are really battling with today. And the top 18 we found 18 this is from thousands of people's feedback, close to hundreds of thousands. And it was so interesting that very top one was feeling under pressure, stress, burnout, that kind of thing. And so they go down, people pleasing being one of them. And so the book's basically 18 chapters that covers those top areas that people battle with. And then based on this concept of, I catch myself saying, feeling under pressure, saying, "Oh, I've got so much to do. Oh, I didn't get that done." And you're feeling that boiling. It's to teach you how to, okay, I'm about to react. Let me stop the reaction. Let me create that pause. Let me stand back, observe, which activates all this wisdom and blah, 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 all the science inside of us and physiology. And then I can change the moment. So it's filled with techniques to help. Does that make sense?
Wow. Yeah, it makes so much sense. And I think there's not a single person listening to this podcast who is not experienced like, oh, why did I say that thing? Oh, why did I agree to this thing?
Exactly.
Oh, why did I not say no? Or why did I did say no? It's like this reflex that happens. And so the title Help in a Hurry, is it about that this is what we do that's in a hurry? Or is it about like there's a way to do this by breaking it down into smaller steps?
Excellent question. So it's about how help in a hurry in that moment when you go into spiral. So
Mm,
moments, it's catching that, it's training yourself to recognize the moment of spiraling reactions and turning them into thinking responses. And you can learn to do that, and you can do it in a minute. And
wow.
you can do it, you can do it longer as well. But there's techniques that can take you, once you've learned how to capture the moment, then it's very important to then observe and say, do I do this often? Am I people pleasing more than 5 times a day, or 5 times? This is a pattern. As soon as there's a pattern, then you need to think, okay, well, this is now a pattern, it's a habit, it's driving me. So therefore now I need to go for the long thing. I need to go and rewire this pattern. I need to rebuild this pattern.
Absolutely.
So that's what it's taking you through. So it's help in that moment, leading you into the long-term work of changing. But you can't do the long-term work of changing.
If you don't do the small pieces.
Exactly. And this is what I was doing with all my patients and clients over the years. And when people asked me in conferences, they would say, but I can't do 63 days. I can't even do
Of
five
course. Of
minutes.
course.
Okay, let's start with 63 seconds. Can you give me a minute? And that's what this book is. Can you give yourself a minute? From a minute, you can give yourself 63 days. It's so powerful how it works.
Quick little break. If this episode is hitting home, you need this. I made a free guide called the 5 Red Flag Phrases That Signal Medical Gaslighting. Because if you know what to listen for, you'll know when to push back. Politely, of course. Check out the link in the description. Now let's keep going. I love that so much. I mean, at the heart, 2 things I want to say. One, I think that anything that we're going to do, we have to start with the smallest step, right? It's one small step at a time. Like, and
Exactly.
and I think what's novel here is I don't think many people realize that we could do that with our reactions because they feel so uncontrollable. So I think that's so good. And the other is that at the heart of this, it sounds like at the heart of this is neuroplasticity,
Yes.
right? Which, to your point earlier, I can't believe there was a time where we didn't believe in neuroplasticity. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
It wasn't even a concept in the 80s. It
Yeah,
was,
to think that the brain wasn't changeable, considering how much we learn in a lifetime, is just it's
no,
just
it was
fascinating.
at that point, because I specialized also in traumatic brain injury as well as some other things. And there was literally no research in the 80s on brain head injuries, traumatic brain injuries, because
Wow.
they said, what's the point? Once your brain's damaged, that's it. So
Wow, that's fascinating.
Then we had this amazing advance in the mid 90s. At the end, late 80s, early 90s, I was talking about, I had head injured patients that were basically non functional going back to university. And not just one, a lot, and going through these processes that I was developing. That caught the interest of the scientific community. And at that point, that was pre-technology, the MRI technology. We obviously had EEGs and things and CT scans, but we didn't
Sure.
have fMRI technology, MRI.
This is insane.
So then once that hit the table, then people saw, the brain is changing. Then we hit another drawback because now they're thinking, oh my gosh, the brain does change. And yes, this is neuroplasticity, but now the human element was removed. So now it's all about brain, and brain changes itself. The brain can't do anything. The brain, if you're dead, your brain does nothing. It's only
Right.
working because you're alive, because of your mind. So your mind is the fundamental. So we kind of went forward and backwards at the same time. And that's what I've been trying to work against as a disruptor for the last 40 years.
Wow, that's amazing. Because we we take so much for granted. It's like when I take for granted, like when I started this, journey before the internet, the idea that nutrition could affect your skin was
Yeah.
so far gone. Like
Oh,
this is how
yeah.
I got into it. And I think that most of our audience is like, what do you mean? Of course nutrition affects everything, but that was not a thing.
It was a time when it wasn't known. It was
Yeah. And to think that there was a time that someone had a traumatic brain injury and people just shoulder shrugged and said, okay, have a nice day. I'm floored by this
We
information.
had lectures. We had lectures from our neuroscience. They weren't neuroscience was a very new word. It was more neurology and the science of neurology, and then it blended into neuroscience. And they would stand there and say, "Okay, you're going to teach your patients to compensate because you can never restore function, and you
Wow.
tell them that they're going to be literally be a vegetable, or they're going to be this, or they're going to be that." And I mean, I could not do that. I just could not. That's why I did that. That's where I started my research. It was that triggered my research. Um,
What this idea that you want to help people post traumatic brain injury?
with closed head injury, it used to be called traumatic brain injury, and that's what let me work with. That's the worst of the worst. People have had brain damage.
Sure.
Let me work with people, and then I work with like Parkinson's and Alzheimer's and dementias and autism and all the hard stuff. And it started working so well with that then I carried it over into learning disability and trauma and that sort of thing. So
Wow. I
yeah,
mean, if you can help people with traumatic brain injuries, I think you can help those of us who just have trouble saying no.
exactly.
I mean, it's
It's
the same principles, right?
Exactly, it's in, and that's the key thing that is that it's in us. We have a superpower in us. Because I know one of the things you want to ask me, and I'm going to because we chat,
Please go ahead.
is you wanted to ask me what was one of the most what it was basically one of the most sort of challenging type questions, kind of thing, of people that won't succeed. Have I ever had someone who hasn't succeeded or got managed to heal or
Yeah,
improve?
like a time where your method didn't work or, backfired and
Exactly.
what you learned from that.
We don't want people to be dependent on a person. You want a person to be dependent on themselves. You want to empower people. A lot of
Sure.
therapeutic approaches don't empower people, they make them very reliant on someone
Keep
else.
showing up. Come to
Exactly.
the next session.
Exactly. So there's nothing wrong with coaching, counseling,
For
therapy.
sure.
But you first have to help yourself, or you're never going to grow and move forward. So that's what I found. If someone was looking to me to solve their problem, they would not succeed. I would literally work with my patients for 3 months at a time, and they would sign a contract. And if they didn't do the stuff, I couldn't help them. So that I can't do it for you. I can only show you what to do. I can facilitate I can educate, I can support, but I cannot do it for you. And it was the ones that were, what, I'm
It
here,
didn't do
fix me. That didn't work. I can't
Yeah.
fix. No
And
one
that's
can fix anyone.
of course, that's true for everything, right? You're right. When I used to see patients one-on-one is those who didn't like all the work gets done between the sessions.
That's the most important work.
Yeah, that's the most important work. So I can give you the nutritional guide. Did you go to the supermarket and buy the things, right? You can give them the guide of what to do when they're thinking about things. Are they practicing it? If you're not going to practice, right? When we were little and you took any type of lessons, like piano lessons or anything, and they're like, you have to practice
You
before
have
the
to
teacher comes.
practice.
You have to practice.
Exactly. I do some individual coaching. It's not coaching, it's facilitation. So it's kind of a mixture of coaching, therapy, and facilitation. But just working with patients with pain,
Mm,
chronic pain. And it's so interesting because there's so many treatments for pain. And I've had patients who have done every possible treatment for pain. Now they healed, they've had whatever.
yes.
shingles, it could be a back issue. The pain is gone. The physical healing has happened. They're still sitting with chronic pain. And that's not anything on them. And this leads to almost down to the depression thing we were talking about before. We had a whole conversation before, by the way, just for the listeners.
I'll ask you that question in a moment.
So essentially what I'm saying is that your body can heal physically, but if you haven't rewired the network,
Yes.
pain, the pattern is still there of chronic pain that inside the mind brain body network. So you've actually got to reteach your brain. Your mind has to reteach the brain. You have to rewire the network to say actually that physical healing has taken place. Because when we're in physical pain, whether it's emotional or physical trauma or emotional trauma, it's so strong, it's so salient, it's so impactful that it wires so deeply that it's very hard once the physical healing has taken place, or once the period of once you've dealt with a certain level of the trauma, for it not to you can still feel like you're in chronic pain. So
Absolutely.
a few sessions within 2 to 3 weeks of working with people to get, once they understand that concept, I've had patients that couldn't get out of bed for the first 2 hours of the day. They were in so much pain they had to take their pain meds, and they had to lie still for at least an hour to 2 hours. Within 2 weeks of getting their mind management under control, they were taking their meds still, but they were getting out of bed immediately and functional. And that's after 2 to 3 weeks. So this, I know I've seen it. I've seen it so often. The mind is where we've really got to dive in.
At some point in my practice, I recognized that there was the person who's been chronically unwell for a really long time, it wouldn't matter what modalities I gave them until they worked on this. The chronic illness has been rehearsed so
Yes.
much.
Yes.
The brain has accepted that we are chronically ill. Um, and, one of my mentors in the land of mold, Dr. Neil Nathan,
Yeah.
if he's giving you, he doesn't treat anymore, he helps other clinicians, but he tells clinicians your patients must, at the same time as you're doing the mold remediation, they must be working, he calls it the central nervous system, at the same time, otherwise they will never get better. They will never get better. And I know you did, I saw on your Instagram a reel about this word rehearsing.
Yes, it's very popular at the moment. So that's why it's very trendy at the moment, the word rehearse. I don't know if you noticed that. It's everywhere. So,
No, explain to us what you mean by that.
so essentially, the mind is not the brain. That's the first key thing. And if those listeners and viewers, if you thought, oh, aren't they the same? I could understand that you thought that, because the media for 50 years and the scientific community, one branch of the scientific community, has punted that message with a very loud voice. But actually what we see for the last 2,000 years, right back to Aristotle, Hippocrates, the ancient wisdom, the mind was always seen as separate from the physical body, but influencing the physical body and brain. So we've got to think of ourselves as a mind-brain-body connection, as opposed to a brain and mind.
Yes.
So never use, after this talk, if you learn nothing, never use the word mind and brain as a synonym, as the same word. They are not the same thing. Because as soon as you recognize that, you've freed yourself. You've moved into a level of superpower.
Oh, I love that so much.
It really is. It's absolutely key. It's one of the fundamental things of the work that I've done, is really studying that difference, the mind-brain-body connection. Okay, so based on that concept, if your mind is separate from your brain, how do you understand that? So the mind is this psychological process. It's this psych. It's this ability to understand what we're saying, to share, to talk, to process, to love, to hate, to feel, to think, to abstract, to create, to imagine. All of those logic, reason. That's mind. That's not brain. The brain doesn't do that.
No.
Wilder Penfield, one of the most famous neuroscientists ever, he did over 1,000 open brains, cut open the skull, awake brain surgeries. And what he would do would be he would basically stimulate different parts of the brain. And because your brain doesn't have pain receptors, you can keep the patient awake. And then he would ask them questions. And as he would poke different parts of the brain, and little memories would spark up. Now those and I say memories, it would be maybe a door or a dog or a scene, but there was no context until the patient would say, "Oh, I'm seeing a dog." Hang on, dog. Oh, a dog, and there's a dog, and there's this scene, and then their mind, their awakeness, the abstract thinking of the mind would then create the story. So the brain just stored the data.
Mm-hmm.
Emotion and the data, but not the abstract thinking. And that's very key. So what we'll see a lot in social media, we'll see that the amygdala rehearses and creates the brain loop, and the amygdala is not safe anymore. The amygdala feels, or the hippocampus is this. They can't do anything. They structures that are like transducers, like a TV, or TV receives signals in it, and you can see pictures on the, you can see movies on the TV. But it's not that the movies are inside there. It's not that the TV's thinking. It's that
Right.
it's simply receiving and generating. So that's what it's showing. It's transducing, and we see this. That's what your brain is like, a very complex TV, a very complex computer, and it's really, it's more complex than both, but it's basically the same principle that's operating. I mean, just think of watching a TV show. You'll choose. There's a whole lot you can choose. I mean, there's a million different streaming. You go and you look and you choose and you select and you watch. It doesn't mean that if what you don't watch is suddenly not there, or that it's all in. We all know it's not in the TV. We know it's being streamed. Same thing with your mind. Your mind is streaming it into the brain. The brain is not holding that all. It's just holding bits of data, enabling it to produce the picture. If that makes sense. So if you understand that, the brain also doesn't control memory. Memories even in your fingertips. Memories everywhere throughout your body. Memories are memories grouped together into clusters. And when a memory groups together, associated memories into a cluster, it builds a thought. That's a thought. The mind builds the thoughts. The mind captures the memories from the experience. Our discussion now is an experience. All of our words are memories. Your mind is taking our words, auditory sound waves, electromagnetic sound waves, gravitational, all of that is building like a little rain cloud of energy. Your mind then puts that into the brain, and like literally like the TV idea, and the body. Not just the brain, and the body. And as soon as this energy of the mind hits the brain and the body, we have this neurochemical and genetic reaction, and proteins are made, and the networks grow throughout the brain and the body to hold these vibrations. So our words are becoming vibrations inside proteins inside your brain, and not just in your brain.
For sure. And I think the reason you said it's so empowering for people to recognize that, I'm going to bring you back to that first sentence, is
Yes,
because once you understand that your mind and your brain are separate, you have full control of your brain.
exactly. And
Exactly.
your body, and your
And your
body,
body.
your mind will put in, like, let's say that like we're talking now, so this is information coming in. As it's coming in, your non-conscious, the deepest part, not subconscious, not unconscious, non-conscious, that is the scientific word for that really deep, wise level. It absorbs everything at 400 billion actions per second and sorts, and then finds anything connected to what we're saying, grabs those thought networks, adds this onto it, and finds the good, the bad, and the ugly that we've built, because every memory we've ever had is stored in the unconscious,
Absolutely. Everything.
into the subconscious, and in the body. So then our conscious mind, around about half a second later, a few milliseconds later, is suddenly aware of what we're saying. But you hearing what I'm saying, but actually you're only hearing, there's a whole lot of stuff that happened half a second before you actually process my words. And that's happening in the non-conscious, the subconscious, and the body. And that's how you'll feel it. Like you can see I'm getting quite animated and whatever. I can feel my shoulders, because I'm very passionate about this. My body is, my non-conscious mind is putting this information in my body and in my subconscious, and it's coming into my conscious mind, and I'm sharing it. So this process is mind driven, and if we understand that, then it makes sense that you get a gut ache when you are battling with
Yes.
that you've trauma, you feel it in your body, this whole emphasis on body, the somatic sensation. So now we come back to rehearsing. So rehearsing means repeating. Habits take 63 days to form, a minimum of 63, 3 cycles of 21. The 21 is a myth that was promulgated by a plastic surgeon back in the 60s, who saw that stem cells, that stem cells build them, basically go through cycles of 3 weeks. And depending on how much surgery he did on his patients, there would be multiple cycles of 21. But 21 was more or less 3 weeks, was the number he saw change. So it translated into, he just basically said, well, this is how we function as humans, and materialistic approach. And it became this myth that we build habits in 21 days. So this has been tested by myself, my colleagues, a lot of researchers over the years, and that's not the case. We take at least 3 cycles of 21 days, at least 63 days in different phases, to actually stabilize
That's really important,
a really important.
because some people might think, oh, 30-day habit or 20-day habit, and then they won't succeed. And then they'll think something's wrong with them. But in fact, it was never set up to succeed that way.
No, it never set up. So you reverse back. It's like a seedling growing. You plant it in the ground and you don't water it, it dies. That's what happens. So rehearsing is, let's plant that seed, let's water the seed, let's grow the seed, let's nurture the seed all the way through to the point where it is growing. Now, neuroplasticity is this ability we have to grow these networks.
Mm-hmm.
And directed neuroplasticity is where you control that process. So neuroplasticity is happening all day long, whether you like it or not. That's how life.
Yes.
But it's either happening chaotically or you're directing it. And so my work has been around understanding this process and how do you direct that process. So you can rehearse. Rehearsing means that I'm thinking whatever you think about the most will grow. What is growing? The mind into the brain, proteins, networks, all the stuff, plants, seedlings, however you want to see it, that's growing. So rehearsing is what you think about the most is growing. That's all rehearsing is. So if
100%.
you have practiced thinking in a certain way, if you've got a certain mindset, if you don't control it in the moment, you rehearse it. This stops you rehearsing the wrong stuff and helps you rehearse the right stuff. That's the basic principle.
So this is really important, and I imagine there are some people who are listening. First, let me say it back before I give you this question. Right, this idea of like kind of whatever you're going through, whatever you're experiencing, you're actually rehearsing it, and if you can just rehearse a different narrative, as it were, you can get out of the current narrative if it's not the narrative you want. But I imagine that there are some people listening who are saying, well, I've had trauma in my life, my depression, my anxiety, it feels a little bit like, are you blaming me for this? Like this happened to me. And how do you manage that type of conversation?
I'm so glad you brought that up because you can't just change your narrative. If you are battling with depression or anxiety, and we know the rates are massive, the first thing to understand is that you do not need a label to validate the pain you've gone through. Depression
Yes.
is massive and complex, and to just subsume it into a label and a diagnosis is an insult. You don't need any label to validate what you're going through. So depression is not it's not an illness. It is an emotional warning signal giving you information. So what we need to say about depression and anxiety and these misnomers that we have out there about how they're an illness. They're not an illness. What we need to say is that I am not depression. I don't have depression. I am experiencing the emotional signal of depression because of. You find the because of, and you can't just replace, you have to deconstruct and reconstruct because you can never change what's happened to you. Once you've experienced something, it is with you
Sure.
forever. And
Forever.
whatever looks like, I mean, eternity, whatever. But you can change what it looks like inside your mind brain body network and therefore how it plays out into your future. And that is hard work. That is not just a CBT technique to whack. It's not a whack-a-mole. I'm just going to help in a hurry, quick.
Yes.
It's not, that's what help in a hurry is. It's not just a quick fix, take a technique, swap out the narrative, because that does put blame. Oh, I can't, of course you can't just swap out the narrative. If you've gone through trauma, I mean, I've had patients who've had sexual abuse for 10 years of their life, 15 years of their life, and have suicidal and you name it, and suppressed things and broken. And I can tell you 1,000 different stories. You can't just tell someone like that to swap a narrative. You can't just tell someone like that to do a technique. Sure, those will help in maybe a moment, and there's some techniques in here that are very similar to CBT, but they come right at the end. What do we need to do first? We need to be able to change how we talk about how we show up. So not
Mm,
I'm depression. I am experiencing depression because of. I'm feeling that depression in my body as this tremendous gut ache and this
yes.
pain in my neck. My behaviors are changing. I am withdrawing and my perspective, life sucks. 4 categories of signals. We need to look at how am I showing up because depression never lives alone. It lives with the other 3 signals. So forget about swapping your narrative. Start looking at how you're showing up. Step back into
This is
your
This is so critical. First, I don't even think I didn't write this line. I wrote this line because it's so important to my audience. You don't need a label to validate what you're feeling. This happens. I mean, this is like the heart of gaslighting, also, because many of our patients, our mutual patients, are spending their energy getting the label, right? Am I depressed? Let me see that. Past the PHQ-9. Do I have IBS or is there something really wrong with my stomach? Like, and we spend time and then not to put anyone down, but that's how the system is designed. The system is designed that unless you have a diagnosis, you are not valid. That's how the system is designed. And what you're saying, which is what I say, like on my physically, I tell your symptoms count whether or not there's a diagnosis. If your stomach hurts, it hurts. I don't care what it's called. And you're saying if you have depressive symptoms, we don't really need it to be depression, anxiety, general anxiety disorder. Like,
No,
you're feeling the feeling. And I love that so much because I think we spend our energy in chasing the diagnosis. And then what? And then what?
exactly.
Right?
And well, it's an empty gift. So at first we want to understand it. So we think a label will help us understand it because the biomedical model that works really well. If you've got cardiovascular disease, there's symptoms, there's a no, that diagnosis implies there's an underlying biological cause. And so
Yeah.
then there's a reason. So people want, oh, I feel depressed. Now there's a reason, serotonin imbalance. Nonsense. That's never been proven. In fact, it's been disproven over and over again. You're not depressed because you have a serotonin imbalance. You're depressed because there's something going on in your life, and it's a very valid response. Maybe you were abused. Maybe you've been badly treated in a marriage. Maybe you've got a child who's battling with a mental health issue. Maybe you've got financial. That's a valid reason to feel depression. So it's not that you've got a serotonin imbalance. The cause is not in the brain. The cause is in your life. The impact's in your brain. And that's where, if
Absolutely.
we don't manage it, eventually over time, that's where you come in a huge amount because you're helping people deal with the impact of life on their body because biologically we wired for love. So when the toughness of life challenges us and we don't know what to do with it, it goes into our physical body and batters our body, and then we do get illnesses. But that's not the cause. Feedback loop, of course. If I feel sick, I'm going
Feedback,
to
of
more.
course, yeah. And then you're stuck, and then you're in pain, and then but this is really good because this is a core tenet when I talk to patients about gaslighting. We often look at gaslighting as like what the provider did to us, which is true. There's plenty of providers who gaslight, but you are gaslighting yourself if you are so busy trying to get that diagnosis and not just being like, I feel it. And now what am I doing about it? Right? Like to your point, this is already valid. It's already valid. I don't have to validate it. It's like when I tell my hormonal patients, hey, I don't need a hormone panel to know that you're postmenopausal. Like we don't need to prove it to me. You're 50, like, like this is where
Also,
we're
you
at.
got hot flushes. Yeah, you got the
Yeah, because they come in like, can I have a lab panel? I'm like, for what? I believe you. We're here. What are we doing? Right?
yeah.
It's so interesting that it works here also. This is really good. Like taking back that power is really
Take back
important.
that power because a label, and there's a lot of research on this too. A label invalidates you and it keeps you stuck. It's like an empty gift. So at first, oh wow, a gift, and then you open it and there's nothing inside.
There's nothing
Now,
inside.
and so the research shows that for the last 50 years, since the mid 90s, they started doing a study. It's a massive study that's been tracked and they updated. Basically, what it's shown is that people are dying 8 to 25 years younger from preventable lifestyle diseases. Preventable.
Preventable.
And that's what
100%.
you're tapping in on. You're tapping in on helping people deal with these. But the source is how we're seeing it, how we've been conditioned. We've got to challenge, disrupt. We've got to challenge the messages. There's nothing wrong with dealing with once you've got the diabetes, one type 2 diabetes or whatever, you have to deal with that.
For sure.
But if you can't just put a band-aid on, you have to find the source. So while you're dealing with the medical impact, it's really important to work on the mind, which is why I gave, well, your mind's 99% of who you are. 99%. Your brain and body are only 1%. So if we only
Crazy.
pay attention to
Crazy.
1%, we ignore the 99. That's the driving force. No wonder we're sitting with a world that has more sick people, more depressed people, etc., etc., etc. Younger generation more depressed than they've ever been. The complete flipping of the analysis. Now the younger generation are even more depressed than the older generation.
Absolutely.
I mean,
And of the 1%, most of it is made up of bacteria that has nothing to do with being human.
exactly. You've got your microbiome, and your mind works directly through the microbiome first, and
It's
then
amazing.
into your brain, and then into all the So you have to. You really, your microbiome is critical, and if you're dealing with leaky gut syndrome, it's probably because your mind's been battering your microbiome, and
100%.
it's not just the processed foods, as we know. I mean, this is
For
your,
sure. It's
but your mind.
multifactorial.
That's why I say we don't have a mental health crisis. We have a mind management crisis. In order
Oh,
for them to actually follow your guidance, to eat properly, to look after their microbiome, etc., they deal with their nutrition. That's mind. You're giving them information. They have to use their mind to receive your information and believe you and apply it and do the stuff between sessions. That's mind work.
yes. The
That's
work within the
body
study.
work. That's mind work. And you're probably familiar with the studies where they've shown that people that may have do have a great exercise routine and nutritional routine, but they aren't managing their mind. They're losing somewhere between 35 and 96% of the benefit of that exercise and that healthy, organic, clean farm-to-table meal. That's crazy.
Absolutely.
People aren't told about that.
People are not talking about it. We're very focused on the external shell.
Exactly.
Exactly. I'm going to ask
Sorry,
you
you
one more
got me
question.
going on my bandwagon here.
No, I'm with you. I just know you have to be somewhere soon.
Yes,
So
I got another interview.
I'm going to ask you one more question.
Yes.
I want to make it real. There's a single mom out there listening to us. She's got 2 jobs. She's got 3 hours of sleep. She has a panic attack brewing. And she's saying, I don't have time for affirmations and visualizations. What's the one thing from this book, from Helping to Hurry? I know there's many, but what's the one thing that she could actually work today when she's on the shift in the trenches? What can she do to take back control of her mental health?
Such a great question. Give me 60 seconds. Give yourself 60 seconds. And then what you do first of all, I'm going to walk you through the basic framework, and then the book's got all the techniques that you can add in. So there's like, if you do self-critical talk, there's all. So I'm going to give you the framework. The framework is the first thing to do is to acknowledge what you're feeling in that moment. Say it with compassion. And you literally stand back and observe yourself. So it's going to take me longer than a minute to explain. It's going to take me 2 minutes to explain it, okay? Or 3 minutes. But I'm going to give the side stuff, if that's okay. So the first thing is to acknowledge with kindness and compassion that you feel that way. Say it out loud, write it down. No judgment, no harshness, no you should be a better mother, no you should.
No,
It's your fault you're not sleeping. Throw that all out the door and simply acknowledge and honor the moment that you are in. I am breaking down. It's too much. Get it out. Write it down. As soon as it's out, a lot of psychoneurobiological things happen right down to the level of your DNA. Your brainwaves change. Your telomeres on the ends of chromosomes, if you don't know what they are vital for cell division, and you're making 800 to 1 million new cells every second. What I'm saying is that scientifically, when you make that statement, you have shifted yourself and put yourself in the driver's seat, and you've started directing and changing all of your brain and body functioning in the right direction. You've primed yourself for success just by acknowledging with kindness and compassion. And you can do that in under 10 seconds. Then in the next 10 seconds, what you do is we want to now prepare you for, like, how am I going to get through this moment? So I'm feeling a little better because I've acknowledged, I've got it out, etc. So we're going to do good old-fashioned things like breathing. Now, I know everyone knows about breathing, but do you really know what it does? It's unreal. Wow. You know, but the average person does a deep breath. The worst thing you can do when you're in a panic is to take deep breaths. The worst thing you can say to someone when they're in a panic is take a deep breath, because they don't. They lift their shoulders and they breathe into the wrong place, and you tell your body you're in a panic.
That's so true.
So what you want to do is make sure that you've dropped your shoulders, that you unclench your jaw, and then breathe in for 3 counts, but make sure that your belly moves. So it's drop your shoulders, drop your jaw, unclench it, and then so that your stomach really fills up. Now that does a whole lot of neurophysiology. Immune system primed, blood flow and oxygen to the brain, a whole lot of different chemicals are being rebalanced, and you are sending a message from your mind to your brain and body that you are going to be okay. Not you're okay. You are going to be okay. Okay. Then you're going to breathe out. Always exhale longer than you inhale. And what that does is, because I've told myself from the inhale, it's going to be okay, the exhale, I am okay. So if you breathe in for 7, in for 3, out for 7, that's 10 seconds. I call that the 10-second pause. If you're in a panic attack, do it 9 times, 90 seconds. You will calm down the panic attack. You can attach words to it, like you can say, always attach cognitive. So then you could say, for the breathe in, you could say let, and breathe out, you can say go. So let, go, or think, feel, choose, or whatever statement. But if you, like just those 2 statements, you will change the nature of the physiology. And the big thing, drop those shoulders, unclench the jaw, and get the belly full. And that will shift so much physiology. So that's 10 seconds. I've now acknowledged with kindness and compassion how I'm feeling in the moment. I've done some breathing. That may be 20 to 30 seconds. Okay, so now I'm going to ask myself 4 questions. Okay, and all of this, by the way, is in the book. I also have an app called the Neurocycle that explains this and walks you through this in the moment plus over time. And we also have a course. We released 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, a course, Help in a Hurry course, where I walk you
Nice.
through video exercises and really teach you. The course is amazing. And if you get the course, you actually get the book in it. Now that was on demand from my patients. It's literally like me giving you therapy and teaching you all these things I'm doing now. Okay, so third thing is to ask yourself 4 questions. How am I feeling? Where am I feeling it in my body? How's it impacting my behaviors? What am I about to say? What am I about to do? How am I about to say it? That's behavior. How is it affecting my perspective? So it could be as simple as I'm frustrated, my shoulders are tense, I'm about to snap at someone, and life sucks. I repeat.
Mm.
Okay, so 4 questions, no judgment, just 4 questions, 4 answers. That'll take you 10 seconds. So now we're into 30 to 40 seconds. Now you just for a moment blank your mind and just let your mind storm. Just say, okay, I've done this. What else is coming up? And just for a moment, close your eyes, look around, and just see what floats up. That just activates a default mode network in the center of your brain. Your mind activates it, sends out this like energy wave through your brain, and that activates and through your body, and that connection from mind, brain to body brings up anything that you need now that's related to this now. You're not trying to solve the world's problems, we're just dealing with now, this moment. So you do a little mind storm, 10 seconds, what else comes up? If you can, just write those down, put them in your phone. If you can't, it's fine. Just maybe even visualize it. Then the last little step, step 5, is okay, what am I going to do right now? What's my action? And then you do it. So my action might be, what's really good is to visualize something like a white rose. And that white rose, and then you can say, I can do this. I'm going to get through this next moment. I can. And then, however, and then just visualize it. And as you go into that next moment, like you maybe get out the car and you get your kids into the car, just see the white rose. Every time you want to go back to that place,
Ooh.
rose. So in summary, that's 60 seconds. In summary, you have acknowledged with kindness and compassion. You breathe in 3, out for 7. You've gathered, asked 4 questions. You have done a little mind storm. You've done a little reconceptualization. You found an active reach. You move forward. Now, if you manage that once, you will be astounded at yourself.
Wow.
And what I recommend is that people, if they can afford it, get the book, get the course, get the
Get the book. Get the book. Get the
yeah,
book. Of
get
course.
them, and we'll send you the link. But then and read through it and find your area. Go through and if people pleasing is your thing, or I didn't get find and learn the technique when things are going well, so that when you're in the bad moment,
Ah,
you've got.
nice.
In other words, learn it. Build the network in advance. Insurance policy. So you build an
Love.
insurance. Studying builds the insurance
Learn
policy.
it
Then
before the moment.
you're in the moment if you want to punch someone in the face, and just say, "Hold on, before I punch you in the face, let me just go see what I'm supposed." You
Real
don't
quick.
want to just
Hold. Chapter 7.
just just quickly read what I'm supposed to do before I punch you. I mean,
So
you can do
it's
it. You could do
actually,
that.
it sounds long, but it's once you get it, acknowledge,
You just
breathe, 4 questions, blank, and then get that visual, move on. It's 60 seconds. So the answer
yeah,
is you have 60 seconds. Everyone has 60 seconds. So it might take you more than 60 seconds to read the book, but then when in that moment, those 60 seconds will save you from losing your job.
exactly, exactly that can save you
That's
from.
amazing.
And when you feel, as a human, when we feel success in a minute, it's so great. We have such a burst. The benefit is so much bigger than it's not the benefit's not going to be only for a minute. It's going to be for so much longer. So you'll feel so much better for the next few minutes, and then you can do it again. You can do these. Eventually, you'll get the hang of it. You'll do it in 10 seconds. I can
I
look
love
at you and be doing it in my mind if I need to calm down or refocus or something.
that is so
That,
good.
that's how good you get at this. You can
That's
do it in
amazing.
2 seconds for each step. Eventually, you can get so you can use it in so many different ways. Called the neurocycle. It's a formula for how you direct neuroplasticity, and so that people don't get confused. The Help in a Hurry book is how, the managing that moment, creating that pause, and then the neurocycle is how you then use the neurocycle app is how you use it daily to rewire the habit.
I love that so much. Dr. Carolyn Leaf, thank you so much for being here with us today. You have enlightened all of us
Thank you so much for your great questions and allowing me to get on my soapbox and talk about this. I'm so passionate about this. So
all day. If you didn't have another podcast after this, I would keep talking to you. It's amazing. Thank you
thank
for
you
being
so much.
here.
So, and thank you for what you do. And thank you for this great interview. I loved it. Thank you.
Thank you, of course. Well, that's another episode of the Medical Disruptor. This is what medical disruption looks like, not blaming, but exposing the limits of the training and pushing the conversation forward. You're part of a community that doesn't exist anywhere else, a safe space for people who want real scientific information, but also want to ask questions without being made to feel crazy. Our community is informed, empowered, and science-backed. And if you're ready to go deeper, go on my website, drfatlamandre.com. It has my book, PDFs, newsletter, and a link for consults. Until then, keep asking questions, keep asking for more, and keep disrupting.